Caught the last one on the camera. Like how it's coming on right? Gang, these niggas keep making all these dishes, man. Making all these rap beefing, man. He keep making all them dishes, his little rapping ass. You ain't got no bodies, your little capping ass. Little folks, get him. Go ahead, blast him. Go ahead, blast him. Caught the last one all on camera and we ain't had a mask.
The United States Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania is one of the original federal districts created by the Judiciary Act of 1789. The court's jurisdiction includes 9 counties in eastern Pennsylvania: Berks, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Lancaster, Lehigh, Montgomery, Northampton, and Philadelphia counties. The district is part of the Third Circuit, and appeals are taken to that circuit except for patent claims and claims against the U.S. government under the Tucker Act. The chief judge for the Eastern Pennsylvania District Court is Mitchell S. Goldberg. The people in the district are represented by U.S. Attorney Jacqueline C. Romero. Her, along with Everett Withrow and Timothy Laney, assistant United States attorneys for the district, sought a pretrial ruling. The government argued that Jermaine Lewis, along with Justice Harris and Tahir Rivers, were accused of committing multiple robberies of commercial stores in Philadelphia throughout 2022. During these robberies, the three were accused of using the threat of force and, some robberies, actual force against innocent and hardworking employees of the stores. The indictment of Jermaine Lewis, or Savo, who went by the rap name Savo with the Glizzy, were various incidents that were part of a larger scheme as investigated by the U.S. Secret Service and the Philadelphia Police Department. The incidents occurred from January 2022 through April 2024. Savo is alleged to be part of a group that were supplied with hundreds of thousands of $100 counterfeit bills by an individual that printed and cut these bills. They would attempt to make small purchases at retail stores. If the transaction was not successful, then they would attempt to take cash from the cash drawer. It was basically a smash and grab routine, said the government. The individual who supplied the cash, who is not named in the indictment, might be a federal informant. They would supply Savo and 25th Street Bill with almost $1 million worth of fake money. Savo, whose real name is Jermaine Lewis, was asked along with others to do the grunt work of taking the bills to stores and exchanging the fake cash for real cash, starting off with getting change by buying a small item like candy or gum. These attempts grew more desperate as the men started to become impatient from the tedious nature of going to store after store, day after day. $98 a store wasn't going to cut it for them, and they needed more money from each store. The gun purchases morphed to armed robbery as the pandemic was making getting money more important than ever for them.
Fuck it. Headshot hit him, that's gonna make him vomit. We caught his ass, we bitten off and they turning off their comments. BG hit that cut, he steady bombing. Niggas lying about they wreck, man, they need to stop it. We got glizzies with them switches and them bitches bustin'. I've been tweaking, I've been snapping since I lost my cousin.
So the way these federal cases works is, if any law enforcement agency is alerted and they suspect someone of a crime, in this case a financial crime, the proper agency is called. For counterfeit money, the United States Secret Service is called. Yes, the same agency that protects the President of the United States can and will prosecute you for forgery and counterfeit money cases. It's also pretty easy for the feds to make a conspiracy case if and when they choose to. When they went to file the indictment charges, the charging documents read, "The government now moves to admit the following categories of evidence at the upcoming trial. 1. Evidence of the formation and existence of a conspiracy between Lewis, Harris, and Rivers, and others includes evidence of prior meeting and communications prior to the charged time frame of the conspiracy. 2. Evidence of Lewis, Harris, and Rivers wearing the same or similar clothing at times prior to the charged conspiracy. 3. Evidence of Lewis and Harris discussing counterfeit money or displaying counterfeit money prior to the time frame charged in the indictment. 4. Evidence of Harris and Lewis discussing buying firearms, possessing firearms, and displaying firearms prior to the charged conspiracy." It goes on to state that on May 17, 2023, the grand jury returned a second superseding indictment against Jermaine Lewis, Justice Harris, and Tahir Rivers, charging them with counts involving conspiracy, counterfeit currency, and robbery. Federal search warrants were authorized to search the Instagram accounts of the three. Much of the evidence in this case the government seeks to admit comes from the searches of these three accounts. On January 14th, 2022, Philadelphia Police Department officers responded to a robbery reported at the Target store at 1100 Roosevelt Boulevard. According to witnesses and law enforcement reports, 3 black males wearing ski masks entered the store and tried to buy gum using a counterfeit $100 bill. The cashier refused, and 2 of the masked men became angry and argued with the cashier and the security guard. One of them threatened the Target employees by suggesting that he had a firearm. "I'm about to reach in my bag," one said. The man then tossed approximately $1,300 in counterfeit bills on the counter and reached into the cash register and grabbed 1,000 real dollars. Target employees indicated that the store did not resist the suspects due to the implicit threat of violence. A Target employee stated that one of the men had a distinct money sign tattoo on his forehead between his eyes. The suspect then left in the black Chevrolet Impala. The document then goes on to state that Jermaine Lewis has a $sign tattoo in the middle of his forehead. On January 20th, 2022, at a Giant on Cotman Ave, they attempted to buy some items with a $100 counterfeit bill that the cashier did not accept. They had words with the cashier, who gave them some real money, and then they left the store. On January 24th, 2022, at around 7:15 p.m., the loss prevention officer at the Target store at 7400 Bustleton Ave reported a fraud when Lewis and Harris entered the store and attempted to buy something with counterfeit bills. The cashier ultimately rejected the purchase after having the feeling that the currency was fake. The 2 men left the store in a black Chevy Impala. In an ensuing bulletin regarding the incident, the United States Secret Service received notification and alerted law enforcement that they suspected that Lewis, Harris, and others would then return to the other Target store on Roosevelt Boulevard that they had previously robbed on January 14, 2022, the first incident we mentioned. They were ultimately proven right when, 5 minutes later at 7:30 p.m., 4 men, including Lewis and Harris, went back to that Target. Police instructed the Target employees, including the loss prevention officer, not to intervene and to await law enforcement. The 4 men left the store upon noticing the presence of the loss prevention officer. The LP officer followed Lewis, Harris, and the 2 others outside of the store and observed them enter a nearby ShopRite on Roosevelt Boulevard. At this point, PPD officers arrived on the scene and noticed the same black Chevy Impala driven by the suspect in prior incidents, bearing the license plate number that they had established. Inside the vehicle was a man named Daniel Pearson who attempted to flee by driving away in the car. Police stopped him from fleeing and took him into custody. After a search of the vehicle, cops found counterfeit money. After Harris was arrested, hundreds of dollars in counterfeit bills were found on him. Jermaine Lewis fled, sprinting on foot at the approach of police. He was later arrested in another store that he was hiding in, and counterfeit money was also found on him. The 4 would eventually bail out, and according to this, they would get right back to business. On July 19, 2022, Lewis and Justice Harris entered a Wawa on 16th and Market. They handed the cashier a fake $100 bill and asked for change. The cashier knew it was counterfeit but gave the men change anyway, and they left the store. By now, it should be apparent to viewers that this is petty, small-time crime, which is not only not worth going to jail over, but just by trying to pass off counterfeit money, the FBI and the damn Secret Service is now involved.
Lil' bro blow his ass, you blow his ass, you think he clutching. All our ops, them niggas pussies and they ain't on nothing. I got him, I spot his ass, now hop out, let's go blick him. No standing clip up in these bitches, all we told is 50s.
After the men's arrest on January 24th, the authorities, of course, had warned practically every store in the city and surrounding areas of these men's MO, showing pictures of all of them and the fake money and telling the stores to be alert. The fake money was coming from one source, which means there were no updates to features of the bill that would make it seem more authentic. The method the supplier of the bills landed on is what they ended up sticking with after printing out millions of dollars worth of counterfeit bills. So once the cover was blown, it was very hard to pass off these same fake bills. Lewis, Harris, and Rivers and the rest of the crew was now starting to see that this was fruitless work, and they might be better off trying to purchase things in the hood, like drugs and weapons, with the fake bills and try to gain profit that way. In desperation, the tactics to get money from these stores were turned up to armed robbery, and ultimately, that's what made the feds make a move sooner than they otherwise would have. Because if it's just passing off fake bills, the FBI and the Secret Service would have probably sat on this a little longer and built a bigger case. Once the big retail stores like Target and Ross were onto them, they moved to smaller and smaller stores. First, they downsized to Wawa's. On July 22nd, 2022, Lewis and Harris went into another Wawa that used to be at 11th and Market. Lewis tried to buy cigarettes with a fake 100, and when the cashier refused, Lewis partially pulled a firearm from his waist, making the cashier open the safe and give them $300. On July 26, 2022, Lewis and Harris went into Sisters City Cafe in Center City. They produced a firearm after being refused change for the $100 bill. They ended up robbing the store of $300. They were seen entering and leaving the area in a black Kia. On August 11, 2022, Lewis and Harris went into the Aim Point store in the Fashion District Mall and ended up robbing the store of $800. As you can see, they weren't coming up off these robberies, and they were putting themselves and the public at a huge risk for a little bit of money. But they had tens of thousands of dollars worth of fake money that they somehow had to turn into real cash. And as you're about to see, their desperation was about to come to a head. On August 26, 2022, Lewis, Harris, Rivers, and another man drove a silver Jeep to their favorite spot to try and hit a Walmart, this time at 4640 Roosevelt Boulevard, down the street from the first Walmart we mentioned. They were determined that this was going to be the day they were going to leave with more than a couple $100. 3 of the 4 men went in. This time, however, they were completely unsuccessful. They tried the usual handoff of the fake bills, but by this point, all the Walmarts and similar stores were notified, like I said earlier, and the jig was basically up. Either realizing this or becoming really desperate, they tried to rip the register from behind the counter, but it wouldn't budge. Flustered and surrounded by customers, the 3 fled to the waiting Jeep. A little later in the evening, they went to another nearby Walmart, and after a conflict with the cashier there, the men allegedly started punching the cashier and made off with a small amount of cash. Only a few minutes after the second Walmart robbery, Lewis, Harris, and Rivers entered the Ross on Cotman Ave and approached the cashier. The cashier stated when the register was open, the man wearing a black t-shirt pushed her out of the way and began taking cash from the register. Surveillance video shows Lewis and Harris physically taking money out of the register before the manager came over. Rivers is standing right next to them. The men left the area in a silver Jeep and traveled southbound on Roosevelt Boulevard. A Philadelphia police officer was looking for the Jeep, and when he saw it, he called for backup and a car chase ensued. Ultimately, the 4 men fled on foot before Lewis and Harris were apprehended. After the arrest, the feds now had to compile all their evidence and present it to the judge in court. In September of 2022, in what the feds call a motion for pretrial detention, the feds for the first time showed part of their hand. They presented the judge with some of the evidence they collected and made a case to the judge for why the defendants should remain behind bars. To summarize what this looks like, it read, "The United States of America respectfully moves this court to detain the defendant, Jermaine Lewis, prior to trial." It goes on, the past 3 years, Lewis, a young man, only 24 years of age, has been convicted in 7 separate felony or misdemeanor cases in 5 different counties in the state of Pennsylvania for charges related to the possession and use of counterfeit currency. Now, Lewis and his co-defendants have evolved from a counterfeit currency crew to a robbery crew, using the threat of firearms, display of firearms, and physical violence to force store cashiers to exchange counterfeit currency or to forcefully take real money from the store. Nothing, whether it be state prison, parole supervision, probation, or pretrial release conditions, has deterred Lewis from committing the offenses. Lewis committed these federal offenses while on probation for 3 of his prior state felony convictions. Further, Lewis has taken to social media to glorify his dangerous and violent actions by posting, saving, and direct messaging numerous pictures of firearms and other criminal activity. For the reasons that follow, there is clear and convincing evidence that Lewis is a danger to the community and a preponderance of evidence that Lewis is a risk of flight and should be detained prior to trial. The government submits that there are no conditions or combination of conditions that will reasonably prevent Lewis from endangering the community and that will assure his appearance at court. Thus, Lewis's detention pending trial is warranted. They then lay out all the incidents we just went over in much greater detail. They go on, the counterfeit currency seized from Lewis, Harris, and the vehicle on January 24, 2022, matched by serial number the counterfeit currency seized during the fugitive investigation of Jalil Williams and Hanif Roberson in Atlanta, Georgia. Here they're talking about 25th Street Bill and Black Neef, who were arrested in Atlanta for the murder of Samir Jefferson back in 2021. These individuals used counterfeit currency while fugitives on a state murder charge based on the killing of a 14-year-old boy in North Philadelphia. If the patterns of the current robberies and matching currency between the two counterfeit incidents in the separate states was not enough evidence that Harris, Lewis, and the others are part of a larger and dangerous criminal organization, Harris also saved photos of the police reports from the Jalil Williams and Hanif Roberson case, for which Williams and Robersons were fugitives, in his Instagram. What is also quite alarming about this photo saved in Lewis's Instagram is that it is cropped and focused specifically on witness statements given in this murder case. With the conduct outlined in the affidavit, there are dozens of witnesses who can testify against Lewis, Harris, and others. Lewis's focus on witness statements in a publicized and extremely serious case shows that Lewis is not only a danger to the community at large, but a specific threat to potential witnesses in his case. On May 3, 2023, a grand jury sitting in the United States Eastern District of Pennsylvania returned a 15-count superseding indictment charging Jermaine Lewis and co-defendant Justice Harris with a conspiracy to possess and attempt to pass counterfeit currency, conspiracy to commit robbery, and other charges. On May 17, 2023, the grand jury added a second co-defendant, Tahir Reeves. And then on March 5, 2024, Jermaine Lewis appeared before Judge Joel H. Slomsky and entered a plea of guilty to counts 1 through 14 of the second superseding indictment.
I was drilling on the bed with Luna for you on it. He kept on talking about his block until we caught him on it. I just grabbed more creams, I'm about to pour 8. And you got all these dead niggas, go let that 40 shake. And I'ma roll me up the top, bitch, right to the face.
All that was left was sentencing. Savo, or Jermaine Lewis, was due to be sentenced on June 11, 2024. When a defendant is due to be sentenced, what is obvious and apparent are his charges and the events that brought about these charges. But what is not apparent and often not even known to the defendant are the many factors that brought this person's life to this pinnacle. If Mr. Lewis was born to a different family or lived in a different neighborhood, his outcome most likely would not be what it is today, argued his attorney. Specifically, he does have mental health issues, being diagnosed with bipolar disorder as a teen, addiction issues, anger issues, and family relationships. His mother may have done her best, but she was not an advocate for her son. The time she was given information about her son's mental health, she did not act on what she was told, and she didn't do enough to handle the diagnosis. She may have been a victim of her environment of not taking mental health seriously or not knowing what else to do, but this was detrimental to her son. When he was given a partial diagnosis, or not a proper diagnosis, it only led to more angst and more negative behavior. Someone in her position, with many other children, having to go to work and just deal with life, might explain her lack of commitment when her son needed her to participate in his mental health therapy. Mr. Lewis has nothing negative to say about his home life, but he left the family home at the age of 16 to live with his friends. Why wasn't an authority figure there to say this is not acceptable? He was left unguided and up to his own decision making when he was too young to do so. In June of 2015, on his first day back from school from a youth placement, he cursed at his teacher. Rightfully so, he was disciplined. One condition being he could not return to school without his mother. Not only was Mr. Lewis embarrassed in front of his peers, but he also had to bring his mother with him in order to return. His mother never came back with him, so neither did he. Everything you just heard described about Jermaine Lewis was what Peter A. Levin used as his evidence of mitigating circumstances before Savo was due to be sentenced. He talked about how Savo, or Mr. Lewis, looked forward to guidance, therapy, and education while incarcerated. He went on to talk about how Jermaine's father has 3 children with his mom, and that Jermaine had 2 other sisters, along with 3 half-siblings that his mom had with 2 different men. He also mentioned Savo's 2 young children and Savo's BM, both describing him as a good dad. Prior to being arrested, Savo was living with his mother. It looked like the defense attorney was going for the sympathy angle with the way he described Savo's life. The only mitigating factor it seems that's relevant, in my opinion, are his untreated mental health issues and substance abuse issues. The lawyer wanted the judge to also consider his neighborhood environment as a mitigating factor. He also mentioned how Savo lost his grandmother and aunt when he was younger, and when he was a teenager he was diagnosed with bipolar, as I mentioned earlier, and was involuntarily committed to an inpatient facility twice, both times for threatening to off himself. In 2021, at around the age of 23, Jermaine told the court that he overdosed twice, both times being revived with Narcan in Temple Hospital. Jermaine, or Savo, also said he was high on Xanax, Percocet, and lean at the time of his arrest for his current charges.
Please, this whole city gonna be fucking red tonight. Y'all gonna be coming to get people. Oh, hey, Asteroid, let's get up, Asteroid. Get up, Asteroid. Get up. Get up. Savo, wake up, bro. Please wake up, bro. Bro, wake up. His tongue is locked. Open, bro. Bro, please wake up, my man, bro. Please, bro. That all they bring back to life, bro. My man died. Savo, come on, bro.
One more dance off.
He probably would have went in cardiac arrest.
He want my friend would have died.
He probably would have.
When he was first arrested, he was put in the medically assisted treatment program and given Suboxone, and eventually got off and is now sober. The lawyer ends with, Mr. Lewis started rapping when he was a little boy. When he was 19, he started posting rap videos on Instagram and YouTube. Even though it was something he enjoyed and had some success with, he said he wants to leave being a rapper because he doesn't want to be part of the rapper lifestyle or be seen as a quote rapper anymore.
Bitch, I'm patient for that cheese, no I ain't in the race. I got all these killers around me, all these niggas shooting. Told lil' bro don't give out passes when you see him do it. Free lil' Clay, he a demon, man, that nigga ruthless. We get the blick from out of town, this bitch from Massachusetts. What you smoking on, Bally? He like this the Yali. That nigga rapping like he active, he ain't shot nobody.
As the lawyer tried to pull on the judge's heartstrings, the reality of the case was still there. Taking all this, along with Savo's criminal history, into consideration, he was hit with a 66-month sentence. And before you bust your calculators out, that's about 5.5 years, and 3 years supervised release. Tahir Rivers ended up with 38 months, or 2.5 years and 3 years supervised release, along with fines. Justice Harris got 60 months with 3 years supervised release. This is not a new or surprising situation. Both Jermaine Lewis and Justice Harris grew up in single-parent homes without any proper guidance in life. They lived in the area with abject poverty and over-the-top violence, and they had few positive role models that they found more appealing than the streets. But of course, this story ends the same as all street stories. I'ma leave it there for now. Thanks for watching American Confidential, and until next time, be safe.